Those were some pretty dark days for me.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, well, I'll put it this way. My main reaction was hurt.
Yeah.
And hurt tends to manifest itself in anger.
Right.
People hurt us and we get mad at them.
Right.
So a lot of the early struggle that I had was trying to reframe her in a more charitable way.
Right.
And some of that involved blowing off some steam.
But before we got to charity.
Yeah.
So we've titled this episode Your Divorce Song, and it's kind of funny because I think Thomas and I both have, kind of different songs that we've associated with that period in our life. And I think that's true of music in general, that you, it's like when you put on a song from the 80s or whatever, and that takes you back to your childhood. If you're a child of the 80s, some of us are a child of the 70s or the 90s or whatever it is. That period in time, if you listen to a certain song, a lot of times it'll trigger a certain memory or take you back to a certain place. And so I think that's very much what the divorce song, for us is about. And we're going to talk about each of our own choices of divorce soundtracks, so to speak. And then we're going to share a few other things that we did that were maybe not the what am I trying to say? The most becoming of behaviors at that stage, but it was something that helped us deal with, the anger that we felt without lashing out, because you're going to feel anger. And when we talk about this in the podcast, we're not talking about not feeling a certain way. We're just talking about not acting out in a certain way that particularly hurts your court case or hurts your custody issues, in your child custody situation. We're trying to behave well, and, you still feel the feelings and they're still there no matter how much you're trying to behave a certain way. And I think this is one of the issues that Thomas and I have with the whole, conscious uncoupling, AKA, Gwyneth Paltrow type of approach to divorce, which is that
we've had 2 or 3 cases that
have used that word. Yeah. And here's the thing, I think that the good part of that is you do want to behave well. And I think that's really what the core of it is about. I think that, what, Gwyneth Paltrow did in her own case is, obviously I think they have a good cooperative relationship now post-divorce, but I think that they tried to behave well in front of their kids, behave well in front of each other. The thing I don't like about that label is it insinuates that you can get a divorce without feeling upset.
Right.
And you can't. I'm here to tell you, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cases later.
I haven't seen one.
I've never, ever seen one. If it exists, it's a unicorn. Like it's, it's not the norm.
That's pretty good.
You don't get a divorce without feeling hurt or anger or any of those things. So sometimes when we see things from a distance and somebody is quote unquote conscious uncoupling, it can feel like, wow, how did these people get through this without any hurt or anger or anything? And they didn't. They might have gotten through it behaving well, but they didn't get through it without negative feelings.
I'd like to start with one that's been very precious to me over the years. Our kitchen is all torn up. If I look behind me there, I can see the studs. And we were visiting our grandchildren in Idaho, and one of the pipes sprung a leak. And Tammy said, well, why does this have to happen now when we're in Idaho? And my response is, it's because of Daryl.
Who is my ex-husband, whose name we don't say. It's
the man who shall not be named.
Yes. We have a man that shall not be named and a woman that shall not be named. So, yeah.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. So, yeah, we said it was my ex-husband's fault that the ceiling was leaking.
And that's a running joke because in the beginning, we blamed everything on our exes.
Right.
And that's a pretty human thing.
Yeah.
And so I've kind of turned it into an inside joke.
Yeah.
Generally when something very some bad coincidence befalls, some act of God that destroys everything.
It has no explanation.
Yeah.
We just assume it's his fault.
Why is there a hole in the ozone layer?
His fault.
His fault. Why? I mean, global temperatures are warming, seas are rising, Russia's invading Ukraine.
The dog dies.
The dog's dead. Yeah.
Car breaks down. It's all his fault. It's true. In the very beginning, that would come up a whole lot. I mean, now it's not as common that we say that, but it kind of became this inside joke between me and Thomas. If I would just be like, why? This is driving me crazy. Why is this happening? And he'd be like, well, it's clearly your ex-husband's fault.
There you go. It's got to be.
One of the other things we did early on, and this one in particular is, I'm a little bit embarrassed to even say that we did this, but Thomas and I.
You're not going to embarrass me, are you?
Yeah, well, we both did this. Thomas and I went into this store, and they had all these cool T-shirts with all these various sayings and everything like this, and it was really, really neat. And so they, of course, had T-shirts about your exes, and so Thomas bought one T-shirt and I bought a different one. And mine said, it's better to have loved and lost than to live with an bleep, an ass. I'll just say it. To live with an ass. I don't know if the shirt said ass.
A monkey's butt.
It said better to have loved and lost than to live with a jerk the rest of your life.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd have to dig it out. I probably have it upstairs.
I came across mine yesterday when I was looking through a drawer with old, I got to purge my wardrobe, and I came across all these T-shirts that I saved because I thought they were funny. But mine said, I miss my ex, but my aim is improving.
Yeah, so we had our own little, and we'd of course wear them at the same time. So,
well, I don't think I've worn that shirt more than once.
Well, I think we wore it a few times in the beginning, but we certainly haven't worn them in many, many years.
In the beginning,
yeah, I mean, we would wear them like if my kids were gone and your kids were so little they weren't reading yet, so it didn't matter. But once we got to the age where everybody knew what they said and stuff, then
Yeah, and it's fine. It was just a way of blowing off steam, and
right.
In many ways, holding on to that resentment is your worst enemy in a divorce.
It is. I mean, everybody feels that way in the beginning,
right?
And so, I talk about this sometimes because a lot of times when people first contact us, this is the state they're in,
right?
And that's fine. We can handle that. I can even handle, absorbing some of those hits. And so that's why this work is hard emotionally in a lot of ways, and it can be exhausting. But because you are kind of absorbing other people's negative feelings that they're processing.
Right.
But if I have somebody that I can't move through that,
mm-hmm.
that's when you get to a point where you kind of have to go,
yeah,
I can't do anything else to help you. Like, if you're upset, but you don't want to feel that way and you want to change and you want to be able to be positive, I can work with that. I can help you with that. I can give you strategies. I can help you process. I can do things. But if you're like, I'm bitter and angry and I just want to live in bitter and angry the rest of my life because I'm not going to give the other person the satisfaction of me not being bitter and angry, that's when you're destroying yourself.
Right.
So let's talk about our divorce songs.
Okay. All right, I'll do mine first. There's a blues artist by the name of Robert Cray who does an album called Strong Persuader, and I've had this album since the 90s. The songs are all about breaking up and about sexual conquests, and really, it's the perfect divorce album. It kind of expresses the male side, if you will, of these feelings. But there's one in particular that's called "I Guess I Showed Her," and the whole song is about how he's moved to this studio apartment. Room 16 ain't got no view, but the hot plate's brand new. I guess I showed her. So he's moved out of his house. She can have it. I showed her. I left her. I showed her. I may be cooking on a hot plate and sitting in a room, one room studio apartment.
But I showed her.
That's right.
God darn.
I guess I showed her that a man, can have his limits.
But anyway, I digress. Okay.
Yeah.
So Maroon 5, Songs About Jane, that album in particular, and I don't think that was necessarily like the choice of the songs or the lyrics or anything themselves. It was more just about, it was popular at the time, and it's what you heard on the radio a lot, and it's what, I had young kids, and it's a lot of what they listened to, and that like stuck with me. So every time one of those songs comes up, it takes me like right back to my it was an attempt at a Maroon 5 whistle there.
That was the Moves Like Jagger.
Yeah, that's not on Songs About Jane.
No.
That's not on that album.
She married a man who has moves like Jagger.
Oh, bump. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
The best revenge is living well. And so to the extent that you've moved on without this person, because divorcing people tend to cling to the ends of the tattered
phrase,
ends of their old relationships.
Yeah.
And that's just not a good strategy.
Or even get sucked back in. Like we see a lot of times where people have separated and then, they end up having a moment of weakness and, spend a night together or whatever. And what that does is it causes you to have to rip that Band-Aid off all over again. Like it impedes your healing from that process. And so it sort of keeps you stuck. And I went through that for several months with my ex-husband. It's like, he would come up, he would be nice, I would fall for the usual crap. And then here I am back at square one again,
There's something deeply embedded in human nature that just wants to, prove that you're the better person, or prove that you, that they made a big mistake leaving you, or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. All that is true. And so this is why you have to be, really careful about it, because again, you're going to feel angry. You're going to feel hurt. You're going to have these normal, inherent human feelings of wanting your children to love you more and all those kinds of things. And again, our goal is not to tell you not to feel the feelings. Like, feel the feelings, put the song on, sing with it, get boxing gloves and punch a box, what am I trying to say? A punching bag, go to
tape his picture to it, or what?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Throw darts. I prefer darts actually with the picture. Yeah. It's much more accurate.
Got him.
Some people do work out, go to the gym, whatever. We have different ways of coping with our feelings, but you want to have it come out in these types of healthy outlets and not let it, you have to be very conscious of not letting that come out to your kids, or not letting that come out in your behavior or in your text messages, in your whatever that's going to be possibly be seen by the court. All those kinds of places are not the place to release that vitriol.
You can't not feel your emotions.
Right.
But you also can't not deal with them.
Right.
In other words,
you can't just stuff them down.
If you stuff them down, what happens is it's like one of those garbage pails that has the spring lid, and if you put too much garbage in it, eventually the lid blows off of it.
Right.
And that's what stuffing it down does. On the other hand, you can't vomit it out either. Right. You can't just
take it out on everybody around you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the garbage can metaphor is what we see in the conscious uncoupling people.
Right.
It's like they're trying to hold it back and hold it back and hold it back, and then it just all blows off, and then they get really angry, like further in. I find that the outburst of the anger is just delayed. It happens further in the process. And again, I mean, I think they're trying to do the right thing. They're trying to be good people. They're trying to do all these things, but it doesn't make you a bad person to feel a certain way. It doesn't make you a bad person to say, I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm whatever.
Hurt.
Right. But What is bad is if you act out on that. So we hope this has been a little more entertaining than maybe some of the heavier topics.
I had a good laugh.
Yeah, did you like it?
Yes.
All right, so that's all our some of our dirty inside secrets of how we coped with it in the beginning. So if you're watching us on YouTube, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel so that you get notified as new videos are released. If you're listening to the podcast, please rate and review us wherever you're listening, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll grow in number, fueled by them to see the horizon, turn us to thousands.